You've hit that magic number in your life. You want an Audi Sportback Q5. That's what this is. Starting around $47,000, you get a lot, and we're going to cover some of that. Now, this one is optioned out to about $57,000, and I'm going to talk about the interior space because, well, let's face it, the outside looks very similar to other Audi products, and in this beautiful silver gray, you are going to be the king of blending in. Interior space, let's talk about it. This is an excellent combination of their new style and old style. For example, the center console area, the bottom half of the dash, has the old legacy HVAC controls. Has a screen with rotary knobs. Everything is super easy to interact with, and it looks terrific. The upper dash is shrunken down. It is not this huge slab, so you feel like you have more visibility. However, they have updated the infotainment with the new haptic response screen and the new software. So most of this works pretty well. I'll be honest, I haven't had any problems with the exception of the rear view camera. When my phone pairs up late to Bluetooth, the screen will stop working completely and flicker, and the backup camera will not work at all, and I have a little bit of video footage here to show you what that looks like. Other than that, I haven't had too many technical problems. The gauge cluster is also all digital. This is stuff that we've seen before where you can show a full view map, kind of customize it the way that you like. But everything else is classic Audi. There's wonderful uses of different types of materials without relying on gimmicks. The silver on the doors and along the dashboard looks classic. It looks clean. And that is the overall sentiment of this car in and out. I feel like I'm in a more tailored product, a more business class environment. And when I'm doing deals, that's what I need. Because so Jack not to put the up there, the file in the cabin. When I put John and Susie, my two eldest kids at 3 and 7 in the back, I've taught them a lot of patience. And there's no doubt that you learn patience in this cabin because it is so professional, like I am. This is one of the most comfortable cars in its class. It does everything almost perfectly in terms of refinement. You're never in here thinking, boy, I wish they would have done this, that, or the other. No, this is unbelievably great. It really is, and I'm not even making a joke about it. The only compromise is the cargo capacity in the back. And yes, it is a Sportback. There is some compromise there, but I think you know what you're getting into with this. If you love Audi, you're going to love this. And let's just head into the shop. We're going to talk about some technical stuff. Underneath the Q5 Sportback, what do you see? I'm going to tell you briefly. When you're looking at around 47 grand, you want to know where your money's going. And I can tell you at least probably 15,000 of it is going to the suspension and the architecture of this car. Because unlike some of the more budget luxury vehicles, something like an RX 350 Lexus, for example, they sell a ton of those. But when you look at those back to back, you're like, this looks like an exotic car compared to the Lexus. Everything is aluminum in the front, including the subframe. The suspension layout is multi-link, and it is using pieces of cast and forged aluminum, dual ball joints on the bottom half of it. And the point is, this is where you get a lot of the refinement. And this MLB Evo architecture is shared and scaled out across cars like the Bentley Bentayga, the Porsche Cayenne, and this is definitely a lot here for essentially your dollars. The underbody is completely covered and littered with acoustic panels and panels that reduce NVH. It's in the wheel wells. It's here, it's everywhere, and that's partly why you get that level of refinement from the road. Now, the rear half of the car has a steel subframe, but there is some aluminum in the back. But again, multi-link front, multi-link back, and that is a majority of where you're spending a lot of your money. It's time to take this for a drive and see what it's like to operate. We know this is a luxury moniker at a more reasonable price, so let's take a look. Well, the 2-liter is unoffensive. It feels and sounds like pretty much every other 4-cylinder, and I'm sorry to say this is just the world of the turbocharged era. You essentially feel nothing, you hear nothing. It's more like a vacuum cleaner on wheels, but luckily Audi does not pump in any fake synthetic noise or like synthesizer effect. So when you're just cruising along, it is very quiet, it is unobtrusive, and the big thing about this 2-liter for me is when you're doing regular highway driving, it's got just enough power. And I'll talk about the transmission in a minute, but the biggest deficiency of the 2-liter is when you're getting off the line, this has such a dead zone. It's like you have to wait 2 seconds before anything happens, and then it all comes on. And it's one of those, for me, in a rural area or when you're crossing the highway or you gotta get going fast, there's always this delay and lag, and it hurts your confidence if you need to get out quickly. So you have to plan for that, and it sucks. The other part is the start-stop system, which is, you know, essentially here because of regulations and their home market. And the start-stop makes it way worse because sometimes when you come to a stop, the engine gets killed and then you hit the throttle, it comes back to life. So there's this even bigger delay, and even sometimes the car starts to roll back before it restarts itself. The biggest annoyance, the worst part about this car is that. So now I'm gonna get into the things that it does extraordinarily well. Now, when you add the sport package like this one has, you get 21-inch wheels, and you're like, uh-oh, here we go. It's gonna cost me an arm and a leg to replace them, and it's gonna ride like crap. And luckily, that's not the case for this car. So biggest pro, it rides amazing. It is soft, it is comfortable, it is quiet, it handles all pavement types without sacrificing the way it turns in. Its sharpness is still there, and when I say sharp, it's just quick enough to give you the confidence to throw this thing in the corners. If you need to make a maneuver, there's not this huge delay or huge connection from the front to the rear of the vehicle. So it always gives you a sense it's gonna go where you point it, and it makes it a lot more engaging to drive. Now, obviously this has Quattro, the all-wheel drive system, and it is definitely, like most Audi products, set up in the safe manner. On the street, it's always going to push a little bit. The understeer is going to come in. It's not going to rotate around on you. It's not going to give you that spinny rotation feel. But I think for most people that are going to drive this, it really does tear it up. And with the sport package, there's a ton of grip in this thing, and you could do things that you probably wouldn't normally do. I mean, like just stupid shit like that, where you would have to make an instant maneuver. Some of its competitors, like the more front-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive systems, would just plow right off the road. This is able to sort it out and then send enough power to the rear end to keep you going. So ride quality, comfort is amazing. That is what I love about this. And I will say one more thing positive before we get into the final thoughts. The transmission. This is their 7-speed, and I would say this is a lesson to basically every single car manufacturer, usually the Asians or the Japanese, who have to do their own transmissions. This car is unbelievably good at transmission tuning. When you're just going along, you never notice it. It's so smooth, the gear shifts are imperceptible. When you want to go flat out, the gear shifts are quick. And then if you want to take manual control, this thing does an unbelievably great job at downshifting. It's almost, I mean, again, I'm so impressed by it. It will always take the gear that you're trying to select. It rev matches every downshift without creating any gear shock, and it just is such a great job on their part. This is basically industry leading at this price point, how they have this set up. The only thing is it doesn't hold revs, which obviously in a product like this, you don't really care if it auto upshifts, but that would be the only negative part. But if you plan on doing any type of manual control of this or engaging driving, when you're putting it in sport mode or you're taking control of the paddles, it's not a gimmick. It actually works. And that's one of the other reasons why I've really enjoyed driving this compared to some of the more affordable selections in the luxury market. But with that said, you know, it's still a Q5 at its heart. There's not a lot here that is gonna turn you off, let me just put it that way. So let's head into the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Audi Q5 Sportback. I'm gonna get right into the pros. This car is incredibly cohesive. The exterior matches the interior design and matches the driving character. It is a refined experience, and I didn't find any issues with paint quality, build quality, panel gaps, interior quality, despite this being manufactured in Mexico. Now, the Sportback, you could argue, why not just get a regular Q5? Well, it just gives you yet another alternative in the SUV CUV market. The refreshed interior and some of the exterior stuff works well. It doesn't stand out, it doesn't scream at you, and the updated infotainment works quite well. And with the last generation HVAC controls without having a split screen, it does. This is a very good car that you can use every single day. The transmission programming is one of the best in the industry. The four-cylinder is a four-cylinder, and it has problems getting off the line. There's a lot of turbo lag or a lot of lag to start with, but it is just super, super smooth. And it is a total sleeper. And that's kind of the cons of it. I felt like I was bored a lot in this, just looking at it. And it doesn't help that it was silver yet again, because every car is silver, gray, black, and white. And you just look at it, you're like, looks clean. But you never feel anything. You never feel anything with the interior. It's just a very, it just lacks character, for a better word. But if you don't want something flashy, and like I said at the start, everything works perfectly together, that's what this car does amazingly, along with, oh my God, this thing rides so good. And I can't imagine how soft and plush it rides without the larger wheel and tire package. So if you spec this out right, you get a lot for your money. And I drove it and I enjoyed it almost every single minute in it. It is a totally great highway cruiser. At no time were you feeling fatigued or like, get me the hell out of here. And that's kind of hard to do, really. So we're going to conclude on that note. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.